Targeting the hamstrings on a stability ball or a glute ham roller is great, but which one for programming? Well, it really depends on what the client's goal is and where they're at. I typically start with the stability ball or the Swiss ball. And the main reason for that is it's going to have their feet a little bit more elevated. And so for someone that maybe is prone to some low back issues or not strong enough yet to be able to handle a more eccentrically loaded position, this is naturally going to keep the pelvis in slightly more of a posterior tilt. Takes pressure off the lower back. They're not as long of a lever. Think about this. If I'm pulling in from here, I can keep my hips down if needed, or I can elevate. But even so, there's less stress on the hamstrings than if I were to use an actual roller, which is going to be much more of an eccentric component because that thing can slide, right? And so it's going to take me out to a lower position, so my hamstrings are more lengthened than they would be with the ball, and this can put then more stress. So if somebody is anthropometrically not inclined to use a roller, say they have really long femurs, really short torso, I may also have them on the ball. Ball is also really good if we're just working on stability and coordination. So if somebody lacks that coordinative capacity to keep their body more midline, this is a great way. Teach them to drive in their elbows, pull that ball in. We can work on pulling the toes back to make it a little bit more focused on the hamstrings as opposed to the calves. But we get that coordination to start to happen with something that's slightly less stable. Think of it like this as well. If I were to start somebody out with a plank, this is a more elevated position. Yes, it wants to move a little bit, so I'm having to brace down, but ideally, it is not as low and long of a lever as if you're completely down on the ground, which is the equivalent of what the roller is. Now, that roller, because it doesn't have the friction, may also be too challenging. So something in between can often be your set of sliders, which I really like, because now instead of it being an eccentric component that roller wants to just slide out and that client has to be ready for those hamstrings to take, this has some friction. I like typically doing it on your actual turf as opposed to your rubber, but if you need even more, you can. So now instead of it just being eccentric, a lot more friction. I can control here, which is great. And my concentric, my pulling in, actually with that friction makes it a little harder. So I'm getting more of that concentric focus before I'm ready to overload with that roller and go from that position. If this is too hard, then the nice thing is you've got this perfect in between where you can slide on out with two, pull in with one by driving the heel down, then bring in with the other one, raise the hips back on up, and repeat alternating sides.